I have played way too much Skyrim. With 6,500 hours in it since it came out back in 2011, I can confidently say that I have no friends. But ignoring that, I've done a lot of Skyrim challenge runs, many of which were not fun or entertaining in any way, but were just very stupid and boring while my chat laughed at me. Shout out to my restoration only run where it took me 3 hours to figure out how to use restoration magic to destroy web. 3 hours for web. My goal here is not to tell you how to play or what to do. I just want to give you some really useful tips and information that is really useful when you're near the start of your journey in Skyrim. First, if you're playing with keyboard and mouse, you can actually speed up the wait time in Skyrim by dragging the slider across and holding it with your mouse. Then, pressing E to activate it while still holding it, you can drag the slider back across and it is much faster than waiting normally. Sorry, controller players. The reason I gave you that previous tip is because it becomes extremely helpful if you need to make some gold fast in Skyrim. If you marry your favorite partner in Skyrim, they will actually earn you 100 gold per day. So whenever I start a challenge run, the first thing I do is I get married, so I can abuse my significant other for financial gain, just like real life. So anyway, even if you don't want to abuse your partner like me, this is still a great tip to do as early as possible, as when you get finished doing adventuring and eventually return home, you'll earn passively some nice bonus gold from, you know, your battles and exploration out in the wilderness and whatnot. It becomes a really good way to passively earn gold over time, and it's nice when you come home and you finally say g'day to your wife after you've been like missing for 2 months, and she's like, here you go, here's 6,200 gold, and you're like, sick, can I have a homemade meal? Awesome. Bye, and then you immediately back out the door, gone, bro. Each race in Skyrim starts with different stats and different skills, but honestly, none of that matters at all. However, each race does get their own race power, and some of these racial powers are crazy good. Keep in mind, you can make any build in Skyrim work. This isn't Dark Souls, okay? If you want to be a handsome little Nord, you go for it. But if what you're looking for is a nice combat edge, the Orc racial is the best racial ability in the entire game. For 60 seconds, it gives you 2 times damage and 50% damage reduction. It's insane. Who balanced this? It's ridiculous. No other ability in the entire game will give you anywhere near as much power as this. Mixed with the quick waiting skill, you can basically use this skill permanently. It's a permanent 2 times damage and 50% damage reduction. Assuming you can kill whatever you're attacking within 60 seconds and wait again. And like the Khajiit can like see in the dark a little bit better. So I guess the Khajiit like, you know, turn the brightness up for 60 seconds. Something. Speaking of difficulty in Skyrim, this is one of my more controversial opinions, but playing on higher difficulties in Skyrim is not impressive in any way, and you shouldn't be aiming to do it. In Skyrim, difficulty is just a couple of damage multipliers consisting of your damage done and your damage taken. On legendary difficulty, you deal 0.25 times damage and receive 3 times damage from enemies. You are in no way more skilled or a better player than anyone else for playing on legendary difficulty. All it does is limit the amount of effective and usable builds for the early to mid game. Literally, everyone can play Skyrim on legendary difficulty with a min-maxed endgame build using enchanting and blacksmithing. If you are one-shotting everything, turn the difficulty up a notch so it doesn't get boring. And if you're getting absolutely slaughtered by everything, then turn it down. There is nothing to be ashamed of. It's a single-player game. The only thing that matters is that you're having fun. Skyrim is about exploration and immersion, not difficulty. I personally play most of my builds on Expert because I think it's the hardest difficulty where every single build is viable throughout the entire game, no matter how stupid it is. That's including Knife and Fork and Alteration only. Don't do Alteration. Don't. Don't do alteration. It sucks. It's you think that telekinesis is going to be cool. Like you think that like throwing like cheese wheels at your opponent's face is going to be, haha, look how funny this is. It's not. It gets old so quick. In Skyrim, the game actually scales itself and the enemies to your level. So don't be concerned about leveling up as quickly as possible. In fact, be careful of what you are leveling. There is no point in getting enchanting and blacksmithing to level 100 and causing way stronger enemies to spawn if your one-handed is at level 17 and you're hitting like your sword is made out of foam. Most of my challenge runs of Skyrim I actually beat below level 10. It might seem impressive to less experienced players to see someone beat Alduin at level 2, but in fact Alduin at level 2 is the one hitting like he's made out of foam. First of all, every build is viable in Skyrim. And you can play the game in whatever way you want. If you want to use a magic build, then go for it. Destruction used to be really bad, but Anniversary Edition fixed it with the introduction of the elemental spells, since they scale off of frost, fire, and lightning, so it actually does great damage. The problem with magic for a new player in Skyrim is that to get a magic build working, it requires magicka management. Spells in Skyrim are very magicka hungry, and it can become frustrating to use magic while you're running around in circles waiting for your magicka to regen so you can cast another spell. Magicka builds require heavy investment in the form of expensive robes that are hard to find early game, or high investment into enchanting, which in turn would also cause enemies to be like stronger enemies to spawn, you know? If you want to mess around with magic, I would suggest a spell sword build, so when you do inevitably run out of magicka, it's not the end of the world until you're more experienced. A nice quick little tip is, the carriages outside of the major cities in Skyrim are very cheap and very reliable and easy ways to get yourself fast travel points all around Skyrim, right? They're all located in, like, around the map, in great areas, for you to be able to cut your traveling time in half, right? Unless you really want to, you know, walk east for like 40 minutes to get to your next quest, you don't have to do that. You can go over there, fast travel to Markarth, it's a 5-minute walk over to whatever cave you want to go. You're not walking all the way over there, you know? Dragons will not actually start spawning around Skyrim until after you hand in the Dragonstone of Bleak Falls Barrow to Farengar, and then kill Mirmolnir. I know this is the main questline, but if you want to just explore the world, this is a nice little tip to avoid, you know, having giant lizards flying around doing drive-bys on you and stopping you from being able to fast travel. You can level whatever you want in Skyrim, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should. A good rule of thumb for me is I always pick what type of build I want to play at the start of the game, two-handed for example, and then focus leveling it up as quick as possible. You don't need level 100 enchanting at level 17 in Skyrim. Going beyond that, regrettably, some skills are almost completely useless. Lockpicking, for example, is fine, but if you do the Thieves Guild questline, you get an item that will make the entire skill tree pointless, as it basically gives you the level 100 perk point to make your lockpicks unbreakable, meaning any point invested into it or time spent leveling up is just completely wasted. At the same time, speech really doesn't give you any powerful buffs either. It doesn't help you much throughout the game, like even maxed out. Similarly, Alteration has a couple of pretty decent and useful abilities, but it's hard to argue they're worth getting since you need to invest in the tree in the first place to get them, at least until late game. I know this sounds so obvious and pointless to include, but really, there are so many cool things you will find in Skyrim by just exploring and doing quests normally. Getting kidnapped by the Dark Brotherhood or finding Farkas's secret in Dustman's Cairn is such cool and unexpected moments that come out of nowhere, and you can only experience Skyrim for the first time once. This is obviously just in relation to factions and exploring, and it's your game and your experience. So if you really want to be told how to find all the Daedric artifacts or anything like that, just go ahead. Just trust me, try and explore for as long as possible on your own. Just for the sake of fun. I mainly stream Skyrim over on Twitch, so I'd love to have anyone watching this come over and hang out. I'm always happy to talk about Skyrim with people and give tips and advice. Some people in my community aren't even assholes, like Dragonforce, who is a total prick. A total prick. In fact, if you come over to my chat and you see Dragonforce in chat, tell him he's a prick, and that no one will ever love him, and that his band sucks, and that Dragonforce is terrible. They're like the worst power metal band. God, what a fucking goofball.